Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the Jade Protocol Sunday Saga. My name's Chris Pantelli. I'm the founder of the personal finance website lifeupswing.com and the DeFi Dorks YouTube channel. So over the past 7 days, the seas have been relatively calm with Jade. The price has remained relatively stable around the $30 mark, and we haven't really had much by way of Twitter announcements or anything from the team. But the community, as always, has been extremely active. So all of that and more in this week's episode. Please hit the subscribe and like button. Follow me here and on Twitter. It really helps me out. And let's get into it. Hey guys. Okay, so this is week ending the 9th of January. So this week in Jade Protocol for the Sunday Saga. A quick intro. I just wanted to say, after releasing my first YouTube video for the channel in one day, I got a troll. So that's good. You must be doing something right. Just want to say that I am not paid in any way by the Jade team for these videos. And everything that I say in these videos is not financial or investment advice. I'm just giving you my journey, what my experience is, and sharing that with the community. So I'm not affiliated with the team in any way. I have reached out to Jon Ray a number of times, who is the project's community liaison. That is where our friendship begins and ends. This is not financial investment advice, and my personal experience is with financial related topics, which you can see on my much more fiat and mainstream financial blog at lifeupswing.com. So the reasons I decided to start this YouTube channel, and particularly to initially focus on the Jade Protocol, it's quite a high risk DeFi project, as all DeFi projects are. And I wanted to provide an alternative perspective, albeit my perspective as a beginner, to this particular project and to the industry at wide. And my experience, like I said, is much more involved in fiat and traditional finance. I have a business and made a number of investments in much more of the traditional sense. So I hope that puts path to any of the criticism that I might have received. It's fine, leave a comment. I don't mind. I'm just sharing my experience, and I know that will attract attention from both sides. I've also got investments in a couple more projects as well, Meta Reserve being one, Galaxy Goggle DAO being another, and a couple more as well more recently. I'm absolutely fascinated by this area of finance, and I believe that if you do have money which you can set aside and earmark, not to play with, because we should always do our best with anything financial to make good decisions and then stay invested and stay involved in order to monitor and make sure that they perform as best as that they can. I do think you eliminate all and any risk if that money is something that you are prepared, quote unquote, to lose. And it's really, really interesting, and I just think you need to be involved in this space if you want to see any long-term growth and you want to see those much, much higher returns than the absolute garbage that the banks are offering to hold your money in the mainstream institutions paying pitiful percentage returns on your savings. So if you do have some money to play with, then these are the projects that have caught my attention, and these are the projects that I'm in. And in particular, this is the Jade Protocol that I try and discuss on a weekly basis as well. So for this week saga, DeFi Dorks, I will just dive into the channel. So we launched and we got some early trolls who think I'm being paid by the team, which I most certainly am not. And I actually think it's quite humbling. It's quite nice to think that something that I threw together in a day already caught the attention of someone, which is quite good. Any reaction is better than no reaction, I suppose. And yeah, as I've gone on, I believe I am probably most likely a degenerate, as they say, a gambler. I have actually had experience, quite prolonged experience, investing in day trading, scalping, futures contracts, and Forex as well. And I actually left that behind because of my personality probably slanting more towards the gambler than the very, very short-term investor. So it was not something that was conducive to my personality. But I think if you want to get involved in quite a high-risk project and you want to see huge growth, then those markets are there. They've always been there. They always will be there. And you can get into those really quite easily. And if you enjoy that fast-paced, high-risk, then scalping futures contracts or Forex, there's huge trillions of dollars worth of liquidity in those markets. You can get involved relatively cheaply now on very, very tightly regulated platforms. So I think if you're going to get involved in something like Jade, then you should leave that criticism of the high risk investment and fast rewards because you can achieve that within the mainstream. So there isn't really any need to try and find that in something such as Jade or any of the DAOs or any of the higher risk DeFi projects. So a degen is defined as a yield chasers in DeFi who go for unaudited projects. Another popular term is aping in, which refers to investing in a coin without DYOR, doing your own research. So my plan, keep this as brief as possible, is I find projects via either YouTube or a number of the Discord communities I'm in, or the Twitter. Twitter is excellent for crypto in general and for DeFi. And then I will throw myself into researching all of the white papers, any of the materials produced by the teams, anything that's been produced outside of the team as well. I will throw myself into that and see if there's anything which takes my fancy or raises any alarms for concerns, and I'll also go by gut feeling as well. And then I do just ape into that project with an earmarked pot of money set aside for that particular project. And as I discussed briefly, I think in last week's video, you should take your total allocated amount and then spread that across. How you invest that is probably best to spread that across a period of time into the project, which you can use a DCA strategy for that. So dollar cost averaging, if you buy at a particularly high price and the price starts to fall, you can slowly on a weekly or monthly basis invest more of your allocated amount so that you bring down the average amount that you've managed to buy into that token at down. And then there's also, with platforms like Jade or any of the DAOs, there is often bonding. As you can see, with the bonding on Jade at time of recording are not worth it because they are in negative territory. And as the team has mentioned, if you follow them on Twitter and set alerts up, you can be notified when there are good incentivized bonding rates in order to get in via the bonding. That investment is then vested over a period of 5 days, and then you can stake that onto the platform once that's completed. And I will hold the project long-term or long-term in DeFi. So certainly weeks, months, going towards the 10, 11, 12-month period. Because you need to give these things time, especially if the team is motivated to do well, then there is no reason to not at least give them time to stretch their legs and test the market and see what it is that they can do and what it is they can achieve. And especially with Jade, it has definitely transitioned away from an unsustainable APY rebase model to something which is really exciting and much more long-term. And like I said, be prepared to lose. There is inherent risk in everything that you do. There was always risk, and it's so easy just to scream rug pull at the drop of a hat. But you can mitigate with your stable investments. So like I have stable investments as well, savings, which are backed by, in the UK here, the Financial Services Authority, and you have institutions which are very, very unlikely to fail. However, I did just want to point out the example that with anything that you do, unless you're keeping money under your bed or you don't trust any financial institution at all. I'm actually half Cypriot, and so a small country called Cyprus, which is in the European Union, and they actually did this a few years ago, where it was called the haircut. So this was during the financial crisis. They actually went into anybody's bank account that had over 100,000 euros in savings, and they took that money off the people. So this happened in 2013. This happened on high street institutional banks. They went in and the government took the money. So, obviously this didn't affect me, but anybody who had 100,000 euros or more had every single cent above that balance removed from their bank account. So the risk is everywhere for everything you do. The best that we can do is mitigate and plan to lose if that does happen. Even in the mainstream financial institutions, you are not safe from this. Okay, so I just thought that would be a good way to make a small introduction. And now let's get into the Jade Protocol. So I thought the best way to start these would be price charts and dashboard. So let's first of all go over to the price. And you can see what's been happening over the past 7 days. So we obviously had, if I bring this to the 4-hour chart, we obviously had this price increase after the release of the Medium article, and then the price corrected. And so since the 2nd of Jan, so which is a week ago, we have been very, very stable, hovering around this 30, slightly above price for this particular period of time. We are expecting a Medium article next week. It was reported in the first Medium article. In one place it said that it would be next week, i.e. this week, and then towards the end of the article it said it would be in 2 weeks, i.e. next week at time of recording. That was flagged by a number of community members, that was reported back, and that was rectified in the current existing Medium article, and we are expecting the release of the second follow-up Medium article next week. So my predictions for price would be, this is probably quite a good time to get in if bonding isn't available, which it hasn't been at yet. I mean, it's available, but not at a price that you want to bond at. So I would expect the price to maintain, and then when we do get that release of the second Medium article next week, there will probably be a jump in price, and then we'll have another correction, and then we will be anyone's guess up until, I believe, the 1st of February, which will be the first investors report, where if it's a good report, then we could see some really interesting price action around that time as well. So this may be a good time if you're not currently involved with the project and you are interested, then this may be a good time to buy. So that's the charts. Let me just close that down, and now let's jump into the dashboard. Okay, so as you can see, let me come down here. The back-in treasury now has significantly increased from what it was last week, and the investment treasury has reduced. So that's just a transfer from the investment treasury over to the back-in treasury, which is in order to raise the floor price, which, as you can see, it has by 34.7% an increase in the floor price. We do have a reduction, if I remember correctly, I think it was around 75% last week of the percentage that have decided to stake, and that is now 71.2%. And there was some talk of this number, the circulating supply, not being accurate in one of the Discord groups, and I think they did mention a reason for that, and one of the contracts was checked out on that. I'm not 100% sure on that though. But the floor price has gone up. We're now at 20.93. And there was also some chat, and someone flagged a contract on the Discord that when the price was hovering, I think we came down, we were approaching the 29 mark, and there appeared to be some activity that looked like the buy bot may have been in operation. And if you remember from the previous Medium article, the buy bot is an algorithmic implementation that the Jade Protocol has in place in order to maintain the floor price. So when the current price falls towards the floor price, that buy bot will automatically activate, buy up Jade, and then automatically burn it. And there may have been that in action. Again, I don't have any evidence to or against the case, but if the floor price has increased and not been updated on the dashboard, and then the actual price was falling towards the floor price, that buy bot may have been activated at that point. But I believe somebody is checking into that contract as well. So if I have any updates on that, I'll let you know in next week's video. Nothing else to really report on the dashboard. The only thing which you may notice is I have increased my position size. I was hovering just around 21 on the Jade. I'm now all in for anything I'm prepared to put into Jade at the just over 30 Jade tokens, which has dollar cost averaged my buy-in down to, I think, just over the $40 range. So I'm relatively pleased with that in terms of where the price currently is. Who knows, the price may further fall, in which case, as a strategy, it looks less and less good. However, I won't be investing any more money as it stands. So this is my position for Jade now, and this is now just a question of time, as it's no longer a rebase token. In order to make any money on this project, I need to see the floor price increase and then the actual price increase as well. So that is the dashboard, charts, and price. There was an interesting video released by Dow King. He seemed like quite a smart guy, so I thought I'd mention it in here. He was quite insightful, and he is, I mean, you know, as one can trust anybody on YouTube, you take them at face value. He isn't happy with how the Jade team has handled things. He actually outright calls them liars. And I can see where he comes from in that sense. I don't think the team has been as forthright as they could have been. Everything seems to go through Jon Ray, the community liaison officer, who is extremely credible. But unfortunately, he isn't a fully fledged member of the team, something which I did raise in one of the Twitter spaces, which was held this week, but more about that in a second. And I take that I actually have quite a small investment in the project, and I find the project thus far very interesting and dynamic, whereas his position is obviously has much larger position. So I can understand that if his investment decisions based on his large position was on the fact that Jade would be ran and maintained as a high APY rebase model, and that has now changed, that is an understandable reason to be upset, as it isn't what he thought it would be. But he's an interesting chap, so if you get a chance, maybe check out his channel. It's always good to look at both perspectives from any investment. But like I said, he, as a small investor compared to Dow King, someone could easily actually affect the holding using his largest stake to scalp profits. And I did find it interesting how he was discussing what he would do when he noticed the price being low and the floor price rising in that short window. He would be somebody who, he outrightly said in his videos, would come in and buy up large positions in order to then sell off immediately when the actual price becomes more in line with the floor price. So sort of scalping out of the protocol, which is fine. Anybody can invest in it in any way that they want, but it's important, I think, to remember that there are people out there with that are very smart, but with probably much larger, bigger, deeper pockets than we have, and prices influenced by so many externalities, including people who want to not abuse, but want to get into a project and get out as quickly as possible without any with long-term perspective on it, which is absolutely fine. But just be aware of that with your own personal investment. It's going to be affected by things other than just people that want to be involved in the project long term. So Jon Ray's YouTube video did a breakdown, which is really worth watching. These can run quite long, but there has been a couple of people in the community who have done a number of things to help you stay on top of what's going on. So you can watch the YouTube videos and you can watch it on. Jon actually speaks quite slow, so 1.5 speed will cut that time down if you want to listen to the whole thing, and it's still you can still listen to it. It doesn't sound crazily fast. 1.5 speed I found worked quite well with that. So some of the things that he discussed in the video, so I'll do a small breakdown as well, but you can also, there's some tweet breakdowns of the AMAs, and then there's also a chap as well who has just got approval from Apple and is now converting these into podcasts, and they are available on Spotify. So you can go in there and you can listen to it on the podcast, and you can also increase the speed as well on the podcast. So what was discussed in this AMA, the floor price incorrect calculation has now been fixed. So if you remember on the dashboard, there was a problem with the way that the floor price here was calculated. That's now been rectified. Here's how the circulating supply on the website is now currently calculated. So the total supply of Jade minus the DAO-owned Jade is what equals the circulating supply. So any of the DAO which isn't in circulation but is owned, therefore it isn't in the, it's non-circulating, but it's owned by Jade Protocol itself, and that's what equals the circulating supply. Okay, as they divert funds from the main treasury to the backing treasury, the floor price will increase, and we've already seen that happen as the investment treasury has reduced. Remember, this was sitting at around the 71, 72 million. That's now at 47 million, and the backing treasury is at 26. So we are seeing a diversion of funds from the investment to the backing, and that is increasing the floor price. As you can see, it's 34.7% up, although this isn't having a particularly significant effect on actual price yet. So we need to keep an eye on that. And the amount of staked Jade has decreased slightly, like I said before. This is what people are taking on the stake section here. Now, you can own Jade in your wallet and have it unstaked. That's up to you. It's your prerogative. If you own a token, you keep it in your wallet. The incentive for staking may seem non-existent. You're locking it up into the protocol, which will increase the percentage staked here, but you are not receiving any rewards, APY payouts, rebase payouts, and currently no airdrops as well. However, with the talks of the NF keys, which is where they record and maintain metadata from your wallet, there may be things in the future which will benefit you to have your tokens staked, such as governance, more voting rights on future directions of the protocol. And that's not to mention as well the obvious reasons why we stake. And the reason that we stake is to take the Jade out of circulation, which increases the floor price. Okay, and an increase in floor price should increase the actual price. So the more people that stake, the less Jade in total circulated supply, and then we can have an increase in floor price. So that's that. Circulating supply, Jade becomes staked, will increase the floor price. Okay, so BitGet lists Jade Protocol as well in the innovation zone. So we can just take a quick look at that. So one of the exchanges. So you can now buy this outside of the native Jade environment. Here's the token here, and you can trade it as you would any other asset. It's one-click copy trading on that particular platform. You can trade without converting any tokens, and it's one of the leading derivative exchanges supporting USDC margin as well. So now Jade has moved away from a rebase token. It might be worth speculatively trading outside of the native ecosystem, and you can with BitGet. No affiliation to BitGet, just explaining what I've seen. Okay, so wrapping this up relatively quickly, I think we're coming towards the end now. We were two Twitter spaces that I'm aware of were held today. Were held this week, should I say. One by DeFi Doggy 333. Shout out to him. Me and him have connected actually, and he's one of the chaps, or the chap behind the Collab group in the Discord, which is on Notion now. So I'm actually involved in that. That is in order to look at ways of collaborating in order to access these $100,000 rewards for bringing projects which are acted on by the Jade Protocol and the Treasury and the VC fund, as it were. So this is a good guy to know. You can follow him on Twitter, and you can also check him out in the Discord as well. And if you want to get involved in the Collab group, it might be worth reaching out to him. It is they're keeping it at invite only at the moment, just to avoid the FUD. And one by Jon Ray as well. So I was in both of those for as long as I could be. This was the first one. That was the first one held by DeFi Doggy. There I am, DeFi Dork. And this is the second one, which was held by Jon Ray. There I am as well. So I did ask a question in the Jade Protocol with Jon Ray on the Twitter Spaces. I just basically said that I think it would be a good idea for the Jade team to bring him in beyond that of an advisory liaison, community liaison role, and to actually stake him and give him some decisions so that he can be more transparent with the community. His answer was that he would be open to that, but he also could see the logic behind having him almost one step removed from the project. I made the joke that it was plausible deniability. He laughed. That was where the conversation ended. So that was my perspective on him. I think he's really good, and I think he would be good for the community to actually start making some decisions. But then, they're doing fine the way the setup currently is as well. So that's just my 2 cents on that. And there was a Twitter thread as well by Press of Estonia. He actually did a Twitter thread breakdown of this Spaces one here. So this was a community-led Twitter Spaces by DeFi Doggy, and this one was held by Jon Ray. So he announced this on Twitter. If you follow him on Twitter, you can see when the spaces take place. And he had some high-level notes and timestamps of when particular things were discussed. So I won't go into all the details there. There's too much to discuss, but there was some interesting discussions. If I just click, I can have a quick look. The only thing that I think is worth mentioning is what some of the things that they were discussing. So you can listen to the recorded playback there. Just if you look at John there, it's 3.5 hours long. Again, listen on 1.5, 2x speed. One of the interesting things that was discussing was about these NF keys. Okay, so I think it's important to remember that the protocol is probably going to utilize these NF keys for something in the future, and this will keep the metadata. So moving away from wallet rep, so i.e. how your wallet has interacted with the protocol, when you've sold, what you've sold, when you've staked, when you've unstaked, all of that information can be kept in an NF key and then used at a later date by the protocol. Which it will probably be in terms of governance, i.e. voting rights, decisions that you can make, which is really interesting. And I think one of the questions raised was, would these be able to be sold? And there was a discussion around that. So if you're interested in having your opinion on some of these things, then it's definitely worth getting involved. As you can see, they were discussing about how the NFTs could become quite valuable and whether or not they could actually become a commodity in of themselves. The final thing I'll show was one thing that I saw which is interesting on John's John's Twitter, was somebody did an interesting proposal on how there could be an element of rebase or reward. Is this the one here? Right, yeah, so there was an interesting proposal that somebody put, and it's on a Google Docs. It's actually in the Discord. Basically, what they were saying is there would be a way that we could, when Jade is staked into the protocol, there is a penalty for unstaking over the duration of a vested period, let's say 5 days. So if you stake into the protocol, you stake for a vesting period, which, for example, could be 5 days. If you then unstake prior to the end of that vesting period, you lose some of your Jade, and then that Jade cumulatively is reimbursed across the protocol based on NF keys, reputation, etc. So any suggestions like that which you think are interesting, you can go into the project and then you can into the Discord, you can upvote those, or you can tag Jon Ray in those as well, and they may get pushed forward as potential areas for the protocol to look at and to dive into. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Sunday Saga Jade Protocol with me, Chris Pantelli. Next week could be an interesting time. We have hopefully the second Medium article coming out where we will see a roadmap, a solution for the smarter coin, how that's going to be handled in terms of moving that over to the Jade Protocol, and how that could affect us current existing Jade Protocol holders. So that will be interesting. And then we're also going to see maybe some of the new hires and how they're going to deploy some of that treasury for the VC fund. Okay, guys, I've really enjoyed making this video. Please drop a comment, follow me on Twitter, give the video a big thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. And if you want me to discuss any of the other projects that I'm involved with as well, then just please let me know. If anybody wants anything more basic, obviously this is a beginner's journey for me as well, but I think I'm now a dab hand at buying Jade Protocol, staking Jade Protocol, MetaMask setup, Binance, transferring funds, conversions, all of that. If you want any more basic beginner stuff, then let me know. And if you're getting value as well, then that would be awesome. Just let me know. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Take care.